In the high octane, genre defying world of Playboy Cardi, music becomes more than sound, it's atmosphere, mood, and aesthetic philosophy. From his enigmatic persona to his rebellious sonic palette, Cardi's presence in contemporary hip hop is both iconic and elusive. On Whole Lotta Red, his most polarizing and visionary project, the track Vamp Anthem stands as a raw, distorted pulse in the middle of this chaotic album.
Keep back! Keep back! Keep back! Keep back!
It's a 2-minute jolt of energy steeped in horror film cues, gang code ethics, and existential urgency. He references himself as this, he gives himself a self-anointed title of King Vamp. And with this title, he transforms gothic imagery into an attitude, a lens through which to view power, danger, and meaning itself. But Vamp Anthem isn't just loud and abrasive just for the sake of it. Beneath this layers of shouted ad-libs and menacing 808s lies a surprisingly philosophical current. And the song explores themes of existential readiness, moral ambiguity, and the reckless pursuit of identity in a world where traditional meaning is hard to find. And in this video, we're gonna unpack just how Vamp Anthem channels existentialism, redefines ethics in its own subcultural code, and leans into the aesthetics of danger, survival, and to offer a modern reflection on what it means to live freely, even if it kills you. Now, at its core, existentialism is explained or defined as a philosophy that's rooted in human freedom, responsibility, and the search for authenticity in a chaotic, often meaningless world. With figures like Sartre and Camus, who argued that without inherent meaning, individuals must create purpose through their own choices, despite the absurdity around them. And in Vamp Anthem, Playboy Cardi embodies this through his lyrical insistence on readiness and action. There's no hesitation, no planning, only immediacy. Cardi's demand for the now aligns with this existential ideal of rejecting delay or societal restraint or constraint in favor of an authentic experience. Readiness repeated through the verse, "You better be ready." It all functions not just as a threat but as a mantra, especially in a hostile world where Cardi affirms the self by choosing action, by doing it himself. And his flag is cranberry, a reference to his gang affiliation, which is the Blood Gang. Even death is accepted and not feared.
Sir, it's nothing I can do not to go to jail. I got fam too. I was not trying to harm nobody. I wasn't trying to disrespect you. That's not what I came out here to do. That's not me. I know I got dreads. I know I'm in a track car. I have another car. I wasn't trying to race nobody. It's nothing. You can Google my gun, whatever you gotta do. It's nothing. I'm sorry. It was an accident. I won't do it again. But I don't have to go to jail, sir. Jail. You can put me in. You can do that. Put me through everything else. Jail.
There's a kind of fatalistic freedom in the mosh pit that Cardi conjures. Existentialism also wrestles with the alienation. When Cardi knows, "Them niggas not those thugs, they some parents," he draws a hard line between his gang's perceived authenticity and others' supposed performance or performativity. I don't know if that's a word, but whether or not these judgments are valid, the line shows Cardi carving meaning and belonging in a world where systems fail and only the tribe remains. Now, going to the ethics and morality of the song, he doesn't operate within traditional moral frameworks. His ethics are street-born, rooted in loyalty, retaliation, and respect. This isn't Kant or virtue theory, it's survival. That's all that it is, that's all that matters. And in a context shaped by systemic neglect and the realities of urban life, morality often isn't about what's right. It's all about what's necessary and what's needed. So with lines like,
"I swear to God, if I took that bitch, I'll hit that butt. You come around my game, we're gonna let them bullets fly."
these lines reveal a moral code with consequences. Violence isn't glorified as sport, it's consequence. The threat is tied to trespass. To Cardi, there are clear boundaries, even if it's brutal ones. There's consistency in this ethic. Betrayal leads to blood. Loyalty brings protection, and in this way, he mirrors the existentialist idea that each person, each individual is responsible for crafting their own system of value, however dark it may seem from the outside. So his lines, they mock performativity. He resents inauthenticity, and he rebukes it, and what matters is truth, however brutal. So in Cardi's code, the worst sin isn't violence, it's being fake. Playboy's music, it often rides the edge of chaos, and Vamp Anthem is no different. The track is littered with signs of recklessness, reckless living, codeine, shootouts, and transient sex.
I've been sipping on codeine, I got pink ass. They gon' hit him up, he done got hypnotized.
These lines aren't just edgy lines, they're symptoms. Cardi is narrating a life where consequence is always looming, but it rarely changes behavior. It's about escape, numbing the pain, speed through the night, hit before you're hit, shoot before you're shot. And this recklessness through even though it's often painted as glamour, it feels haunted in Vamp Anthem. It's not really celebratory, it's defensive, it's in defense. It's a refusal to be soft in a world that preys on vulnerability. And the vampiric aesthetic only intensifies this. He drinks blood, metaphorically of course, to stay alive. Vampires live forever, but they're also cursed, and so is Cardi. So I also want to dig deep into the vampiric aesthetic, predator power and the undead ego. The organ heavy instrumental is borrowed from Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, and sets a gothic tune that it immediately separates Vamp Anthem from the typical trap anthems.
Great song samples.
The vampiric symbolism is more than just a gimmick, though. It's a metaphor for power, detachment, and surviving in a dark. Vampires, after all, they are timeless, cold-blooded, and seductive. And Cardi channels this throughout the album. They take what they need and then they disappear. Cardi channels this archetype not just in aesthetics though, but in mentality as well. His world is filled with betrayal, threat, and need, desire, and to survive, he must become something untouchable, something mythical. The chant-like repetition of Vamp Anthem in the chorus,
Keep back! Keep back! Keep back! Keep back!
it becomes kind of a ritual, a baptism by darkness. And vampirism is also about, contradiction. It's glamour and horror, power and curse. Cardi thrives in this contradiction. He's both predator and victim, king and outcast. So his lyrics are filled with hunger for wealth, women, revenge, but also they hint at emotional vacancy. Like a vampire he's also like chasing something that he can never fully have. So this aesthetic resonates with a generation that often feels disillusioned with sincerity. To be a vamp is to armor yourself in coolness, to hide behind teeth. While Whole Lotta Red wasn't about polish, it was about raw energy, and Vamp Anthem was its bloodthirsty heart.